In the thick of World War II, in the year 1943, the stakes were high for the Allies. They needed every advantage to combat the powerful Nazi regime that was engulfing Europe. This is when a secretive plan took shape, led by the Special Operations Executive, a group dedicated to carrying out undercover missions against the Germans. Among the many brave individuals they considered for this dangerous work was a young woman named Elizabeth. Known for her sharp mind and quick thinking, Elizabeth had already made a name for herself in the world of espionage. She had a particular talent for decoding enemy communications, a skill that was invaluable during the war. The SOE recognized that, in a male-dominated field, Elizabeth stood out not just for her abilities, but also for her determination. She was wise beyond her years, armed with a fierce loyalty to her country and a desire to contribute to the fight against tyranny. After rigorous training, she received her assignment: infiltrate a network of Nazi officials to gather intelligence that could help turn the tide of the war. As Elizabeth prepared for her mission, there were many emotions swirling inside her. She felt a mix of excitement and fear, knowing that the work she was about to undertake could change the course of history. Every detail of her plan was critical. Her life and many others depended on how well she executed it. She practiced her cover story, memorizing names, dates, and places that would help her blend in with the Nazis. The day of her departure finally arrived. With her heart pounding, she said farewell to her comrades. She knew the risks of what lay ahead, but her resolve was unshaken. Elizabeth boarded a plane headed for enemy territory, hoping to gather precious information that could save countless lives. She instinctively checked her gear: letters from home, survival supplies, and tools for her espionage work, ensuring that everything was in place. Upon arriving in the war-torn land, Elizabeth quickly realized how different things were from the training she had undergone. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and the dangers felt very real. She slipped into her new identity, blending into the everyday lives of those around her. It was crucial to appear unremarkable, just another ordinary citizen under occupation. As she navigated her new environment, Elizabeth made connections. Some were willing to share information, while others were more wary. It took time to earn the trust of those around her, but Elizabeth was determined. She spent hours gathering bits and pieces of information, piecing together the strategy of the Nazis like a giant, dangerous puzzle. Each small success filled her with hope, yet she knew that time was of the essence. As the war unfolded, so too did the challenges of her mission. The intelligence she gathered became increasingly crucial, and every new piece of information had the potential to save lives. In this tense and perilous time, Elizabeth's courage and intelligence shone brightly. She was not just a woman on a mission, she was a vital part of a larger effort, a symbol of resilience and hope in a world overshadowed by darkness. Elizabeth arrived in Belgium, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and fear. Disguised as a shopkeeper in Brussels, she settled into her new life among the ruins of a war-torn city. She opened a small grocery store, carefully chosen for its location near key German military sites. Her cover had to be perfect, and she practiced her local accent and mannerisms to blend in seamlessly with the residents. Each day, Elizabeth opened her shop, serving the few customers who braved the streets. As she chatted with locals, she kept an ear out for any chatter about troop movements or plans that could benefit the Allies. The atmosphere was tense. Fear hung heavily in the air as people went about their lives under the shadow of the Nazi regime. Yet, Elizabeth remained determined, knowing that one small piece of information could tip the balance in favor of the Allies. As she stocked shelves with rationed goods, Elizabeth made mental notes of the soldiers' routines she observed. German troops marched through the streets frequently. By watching closely, she noted changes in their patterns, like new units arriving or supplies being delivered to certain locations. Every detail mattered. At night, when she closed her shop, she would meet secretly with contacts who had also taken risks to resist the Nazis. They exchanged information, sharing what they had learned from their own efforts. Through these meetings, Elizabeth built a network of brave souls who shared her commitment to the cause. Days turned into weeks, and Elizabeth's efforts began to bear fruit. She gathered valuable intelligence about the location of German weapons caches hidden throughout the city. With every bit of information she collected, she felt the weight of responsibility grow heavier. She knew that if the wrong person found out about her activities, it could mean dire consequences, not just for her, but for everyone in her network. Despite the dangers, there were moments of connection that reminded her of the humanity that still thrived in the midst of chaos. She met a kind-hearted old man who reminisced about better days before the war, and a mother who shared her struggle to feed her children. These encounters fueled Elizabeth's resolve, as she thought about the lives at stake and the importance of her mission. On one particularly tense evening, as she was closing shop, she overheard German officers in a nearby cafe discussing a new deployment of troops. Elizabeth's heart raced. This was crucial information that could help the Allies plan a counteroffensive. With her mind racing, she jotted down notes in a hidden notepad and carefully made her way back to her safe house, every step feeling like it could be her last. As Elizabeth continued her work, she often reflected on the risks she faced. The streets of Brussels were alive with danger, but she pressed on, driven by the hope of freedom and a brighter future for the oppressed people around her. Her bravery was a testament to the countless unsung heroes working behind the scenes to overthrow tyranny. In this chaotic landscape, Elizabeth's unyielding spirit shone through. She was not just a shopkeeper. She was a dedicated spy, a protector of her people, and a crucial part of the larger fight against the Nazis. As the days passed in Brussels, Elizabeth's determination only grew stronger. With her keen observations and growing network, she began to unravel a disturbing plot unfolding behind enemy lines. One evening, while serving customers in her little shop, she overheard a conversation between two German officers discussing new weaponry and a plan for a surprise attack. Elizabeth's heart sank. The officers mentioned something called V-2 rockets, a new type of weapon that the Nazis were preparing to use against the Allies in the spring of 1944. As she pieced together the information, the scope of the plan became clearer and more alarming. This was not just another skirmish. It was a potentially devastating strike aimed at the heart of Allied forces. She made notes in her hidden pad, detailing everything she could gather about the rockets and the timing of the attack. Elizabeth worked tirelessly in the days that followed, analyzing the information and looking for signs that could help confirm what she had learned. Each small detail was vital, and the more she uncovered, the more urgent her mission felt. One day, Elizabeth arranged to meet with an underground contact, a former soldier who had insights into the German army's operations. They met in the dimly lit backroom of a local tavern. The conversation was tense. In hushed tones, Elizabeth shared what she had discovered. The former soldier's expression turned grave as he realized the significance of the information. They discussed ways to relay the intelligence to the Allies, knowing full well it needed to reach them quickly before it was too late. The stakes were high. Elizabeth felt the pressure mounting with each passing day. She understood the risks she posed to her friends and contacts with every piece of information she transmitted. Yet she couldn't let fear stop her. The lives of countless soldiers and civilians could hang in the balance. As she collected more details about the location and deployment of the V-2 rockets, Elizabeth focused on staying unnoticed. Navigating the streets of Brussels required all her skills. Each time she left her shop, she did so with caution, scanning for any signs of danger. The Germans were on high alert, and one wrong move could expose her operation. During one of her nightly watchings, she spotted an unusual amount of activity at a military base near her shop. Trucks were arriving, moving in and out under the cover of darkness. Elizabeth knew she had to gather this information. By the time dawn broke, she had taken detailed notes on what she had witnessed, feeling increasingly anxious that time was running out. With this new information, Elizabeth was certain she had uncovered one of the most significant threats yet. She urgently relayed her findings to her resistance contacts, outlining the danger posed by the V-2 attack. The gravity of her discoveries weighed heavily on her heart, but she felt a fire in her belly, a sense of purpose that kept her going. Now, more than ever, Elizabeth knew that she had to act. The impending attack loomed large, and she understood that she played a small but crucial part in a much larger fight. In this moment, her role was crystal clear. She had to ensure that the Allies were aware of the danger before it struck. Despite the risks, Elizabeth knew she needed to share her findings with her handlers back in London. The information about the Nazis' plans for a surprise attack with V-2 rockets was too important to keep to herself. Under the cover of night, she quickly scribbled a detailed report, outlining everything she had uncovered. It was a race against time, and she felt a sense of urgency pushing her to act. She arranged a secret meeting with her contact from the SOE, picking a secluded spot in a nearby park where they could avoid drawing attention. As she handed over the report, Elizabeth felt a mix of hope and anxiety. This could be the information that changed the course of the war, but her relief was short-lived. In the days that followed her meeting, Elizabeth began to notice odd behavior among some members of the resistance. Whispers filled the streets, and she caught snippets of conversations that hinted at something unsettling. There were rumors of a mole within the SOE, someone feeding information back to the Nazis. Anxiety gripped her heart as she realized how this could compromise everything she had worked for. Questions raced through her mind. Who was it? How much did they know? Elizabeth couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in around her. Every action now seemed fraught with danger. Each person she spoke to felt like a potential risk, and her trust in her network started to waver. With this new threat looming, she knew she had to tread carefully. Elizabeth made a point to communicate less frequently and to be more cautious in her interactions. She reassured herself that she had to keep gathering information, but now she also had to protect her own safety. She kept close tabs on her surroundings, looking for anything suspicious. The more she watched, the more she tried to connect the dots. She noticed that some members of the resistance were acting strangely, hesitant to talk or too quick to change the subject whenever the conversation drifted toward the Nazis. One afternoon, as she was restocking her shop, she overheard a customer, someone she thought she could trust, sharing details of her work with a stranger who seemed far too interested. Alarm bells went off in Elizabeth's mind. She realized that if their enemy was listening, her every move could be reported back. Desperate for answers, Elizabeth decided to approach a trusted friend within the resistance for advice. They met in the shadows behind her shop, where the darkness helped shield their discussion from prying eyes. As she shared her concerns, she could see the worry etching itself across her friend's face. Together, they pieced together their observations, trying to identify the mole among them. Elizabeth felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her, but she remained committed to her mission. She had come too far to back down now. Ensuring that the Allies were prepared for the upcoming attack was her top priority. But she knew she had to do it with care, trying to outsmart whoever had betrayed their trust. With her resolve stronger than ever, Elizabeth tightened her circle and prepared to move forward, acutely aware of the dangers surrounding her. In a cruel twist of fate, she found herself not only fighting for her country, but also battling the treachery within her own ranks. As tensions escalated in Brussels, Elizabeth felt the urgency like a storm brewing around her. Time was slipping away, and every moment counted. The impending Nazi attack weighed heavily on her mind, and she knew she had to act quickly to get the crucial information to the Allies. Determined to keep her discovery from falling into the wrong hands, Elizabeth reached out to trusted members of the local resistance. They gathered in a dimly lit basement, the air thick with concern and determination. Together, they discussed how best to pass the intelligence along while staying one step ahead of the mole who lurked among them. Elizabeth proposed a plan to leak the information directly to Allied forces in a way that minimized risk. They would create a coded message, which could be delivered discreetly to someone in the resistance who had a safe route to report to the Allies. Her team nodded in agreement, appreciating her strategic thinking despite the heavy burden they all carried. It took hours to craft the message, as they carefully selected each word to ensure it conveyed the urgency without raising suspicion. Elizabeth felt a mix of hope and anxiety as she watched her comrades work together, fueled by a shared goal. They knew that if they didn't succeed, countless lives would be at stake. While finalizing their message, Elizabeth couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She took extra precautions, ensuring that their meeting was discreet and that no one overheard their plans. Every time she moved through the streets, she kept her head down and her eyes sharp, scanning for any signs of the untrustworthy member within their ranks. Once they finished the coded message, Elizabeth decided to assign the delivery to a reliable contact known for discretion. They chose a time when the streets would be less crowded, to minimize any chance of drawing attention. She felt a rush of adrenaline as the team prepared to act, knowing that they were all risking everything in this desperate game. On the day of the planned delivery, Elizabeth waited anxiously in her shop, the weight of the world resting on her shoulders. She occupied herself by stocking shelves and serving customers, but her mind was elsewhere, racing with thoughts of what could go wrong. As her contact prepared to leave with the message, she offered a quiet word of encouragement, hoping to instill some confidence as the gravity of the task settled in. However, just as her contact slipped out the door, Elizabeth caught a glimpse of someone watching them from a distance, and her heart dropped. Was it the mole? A chill crept up her spine as she immediately began to formulate a plan in her mind. She couldn't let fear paralyze her. Knowing the streets better than most, Elizabeth decided to follow at a distance to ensure the delivery went smoothly. She ducked into alleyways and took circuitous routes to avoid being seen. The tension was palpable as she moved, each step bringing her closer to the truth. The streets were eerily quiet, amplifying her nerves as she kept her eyes peeled for the suspicious figure she had spotted. Soon, she saw her contact speaking with a man dressed in military attire, a potential ally from the Allied forces. A surge of relief washed over her. But just then, she noticed someone else approaching, a shadowy figure who seemed to be closing in on their exchange. Panic surged through her. Elizabeth knew she had to act fast. She quickly devised a plan, her heart racing as she stepped forward, ready to intervene and protect the message that carried the hope of so many. In that moment, the fate of their mission, and perhaps the lives of countless others, depended on her courage and quick thinking. In a pivotal moment, Elizabeth pressed forward, her heart pounding as she approached the scene of the unfolding exchange. The shadowy figure she had spotted drew closer to her contact, and she felt a surge of adrenaline. She knew that if she didn't act now, the vital information they had worked so hard to deliver could fall into the wrong hands. Gathering her courage, Elizabeth called out to her contact, her voice steady despite the chaos inside her. "Look out, we need to move quickly." The message of urgency was clear, and her contact turned, eyes widening in recognition. It was clear they were at risk. Quickly, Elizabeth led her comrades down a narrow alley, urging them to follow her. The tension bubbled as they raced to evade anyone who might be following. "We need to get to the safe house. It's the only way to get this intel to the Allies in time," she directed, her voice firm. Navigating the twisting streets of Brussels, Elizabeth felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She was not just protecting herself. She was safeguarding an entire mission. She guided her group through hidden paths, knowing every turn like the back of her hand. Finally, they reached the safe house, a nondescript building where they could deliver the precious information securely. Elizabeth and her contact hurried inside, quickly confirming that the coast was clear. Once inside, they quickly scrubbed their environment, ensuring there were no prying eyes or ears around them. With the message ready, Elizabeth handed it over with steady hands. "It has to reach the Allies before dawn. We can't afford any delays," she insisted, urgency lacing her words. As her contact prepared to head out, she felt a rush of anxiety and hope. Just as he was about to leave, a loud crash echoed outside, and Elizabeth felt her heart drop. The enemy was closing in. They didn't have much time left. "Go. Now," she urged. Her contact nodded and dashed out into the night. Elizabeth watched with bated breath as he disappeared around the corner, carrying the weight of their mission on his shoulders. Hours passed like an eternity as Elizabeth waited, heart racing. The streets outside were eerily quiet, anticipation hanging thick in the air. Just when doubt began to creep in, she heard a distant sound. It was her contact returning. Relief washed over her as he entered the safe house, breathless but victorious. "They received it. The Allies now know about the attack," he exclaimed, and Elizabeth let out a sigh of relief that felt like a weight lifting from her chest. They had done it. Their quick thinking and teamwork had thwarted a potentially devastating plot. As dawn broke over Brussels, the reality of what they had accomplished began to sink in. Elizabeth's bravery had played a crucial role in preventing a massacre. The implications of their work were profound. Countless lives had been saved, and the course of the war had shifted, if only slightly, in favor of the Allies. In the days that followed, news of the thwarted attack spread through the resistance. Though she was just one among many, Elizabeth became a vital part of the story of resilience and courage. While she remained humble about her actions, she silently accepted the sacred responsibility that came with the knowledge that espionage had the power to change lives and outcomes. Elizabeth may never have sought recognition, but her actions echoed through the ranks of the resistance, highlighting how each unsung hero played a part in the broader fight for freedom. In the heart of war, she found meaning, camaraderie, and a fierce commitment to stand against oppression, driven by an unyielding spirit.